Hey, I'm John Mayhall.
And I'm James Raybold.
We're longtime LinkedIn colleagues, excited to share frameworks from our favorite operators. We'll go with the British spelling.
The blueprints behind their success.
For blueprint number 12, we welcome back Mike Derizin with a 5-step reinforcement framework.
The support continuum is a very powerful tool, as we just learned, to get a quick pulse and to get your team ready and in the right mindset for change. But it's not sufficient to get the change you need. That's where the 5-step reinforcement framework comes in. Let's quickly dive in to each of those 5 pieces. So the first is start with the why. I think this is where most leaders get it wrong when they're trying to enact change. They may have spent weeks or months analyzing something to come up with a decision. It's usually very complicated. There are many ways it could have gone. They went down a lot of alleys to come out and back out. They now have their decision and they just want to move and make it happen. Your team has not gone through that process. It takes time. It took you time. And so one of the best ways to get them ready is they have to understand why we're doing it. And the more you can connect it to why is this helpful for our company or our customers or our team, the better. Don't skim over this. Always start with this and then also repeat it. Number 2 is lead from the front. This may seem obvious. You're a leader. You want this change. Well, it's more than just, one big meeting, you're pounding your fist saying, I'm behind this, let's do this. You've got to be visible. You've got to be vocal. If you have team meetings, all hands, you've got to dedicate this as part of your agenda every week. You're constantly beating the drum on this. Particularly, this is a big change. You're out there. For example, you may want to lead a workshop and you're up in front, not delegating it out to your team. So this is really important to know, because otherwise they think, oh, it's just the soup du jour. It's just, oh, this week it's this change. Next week they're going to be on something else. And it's that consistent pounding that they realize there's nowhere to go. This thing is going to happen. Number 3, which I think is seems obvious, but is nuanced, which is measure the right things. And I would argue in some ways measure the right thing. I think with lots of change, sometimes in a data-driven world, I want to be quantitative about like 7, metrics or KPIs. I actually think sometimes that could be damaging, because people then can just cherry pick the 1 or 2 that's green, that's doing well, even though the change you're wanting is not really manifesting yet. So I really like to try to find what I call an index, like one universal number. It's not perfect, it's not complete. I'm not saying don't have other metrics, but one that's really up front and center. That leads us to the 4th reinforcement tactic, which is finding and picking up your money ballers and getting them their voice out there. Remember, money ballers, just a fancy term, is from a book based on Major League Baseball, where they looked at a bunch of data, found the outliers that were doing what they were looking for, that were undervalued, and they moved forward with those athletes. This is similar. This is now your employees. Now you have your index, you get this distribution curve. Who's out there? Usually there's a couple people that are doing exactly what you want. You may not have known unless you have that index. It's happened to me multiple times. You go find them and you thank them and you get them out in front of everyone else. Because if you're having change issues where people are like, that's impossible, can't be done, kind of hard to fight when one of your colleagues is having success. And the 5th step in the reinforcement framework is holding people accountable. This may seem obvious, but sometimes we forget this. I have seen leaders not do this. And you really want to get this right, particularly if this is a really big change. It's not going to be easy. A couple things you want to hold them accountable. One is around thinking about compensation, right? Is how do you potentially integrate this into your compensation structure if possible? A second thing is around performance. I would highly encourage you to think about putting this in your performance reviews. And so if they're doing a great job, they're money ballers or they're enacting the change you want, that should be reflected in their performance review and potentially in promotions, things like that. On the contrary, this should be a talking point, a key point of your performance evaluation, if they are not pursuing this change, even if they're doing a lot of other things really well. You have to address this and say, I appreciate all the work you're doing, but this one piece is below the bar, and to really dig into it. Because at the end of the day, a lot of what moves people in an organization is compensation and is performance. People want to move up. So think about how you can integrate accountability into your change. One other thing I want you to really think about with change is that unfortunately it's not this like binary event that you can like cleanly check off. Okay, I did support continuum. Everyone's like towards a 5. I got my 5-step reinforcement. We're off and running. When you're on new ground, new territory, new problems are going to show up, new things you may or may not have seen, and that could shift people's emotions back. So you also need to continue to check in with them because they're not going to stay in that spot the whole time. I'm not saying accept status quo because you need to keep pushing, but don't push super hard and then expect these results right away. You've got to kind of fine tune the 5-step reinforcement. The bigger the change, the more time it could take. It could take several quarters. You're still pushing hard, but you may not really get a lot of the big results you want for a few quarters. Okay, so one that I really like and use all the time, actually I'm wired this way, is something called logic trees and MISI. So MISI stands for mutually exhaustive. Damn it. So MISI is mutually exhaustive.
Nope.
See, now this is me playing like, you guys have ammo on me with these outtakes. Okay, MISI, which is mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive.